I checked my reflection in the restaurant window and adjusted my cheap black tie again. The suit I wore was 3 years old, but it was the best one I owned. Inside my pocket sat a small silver bracelet with a sapphire charm. I had skipped lunches for 3 months to buy it for Vanessa. When I walked inside, Vanessa looked up from the table and sighed. "Daniel, you're late." "I'm only 2 minutes late," I said quietly. Ethan smirked from across the table. A real anniversary dinner should start with champagne already waiting. Vanessa laughed softly. "That requires planning and money." I forced a smile and sat down beside her. "Happy anniversary." She barely looked at me. "Thanks." The waiter poured water while Vanessa kept talking about a luxury vacation Ethan had taken last month. "You should have seen the hotel," Vanessa said. "Everything looked perfect." Ethan leaned back proudly. "Success has benefits." I stayed silent while they talked. I felt more like a stranger than a husband. After dinner arrived, Vanessa lifted her phone. "Nobody touched the food yet. I need pictures first." Ethan chuckled. "Your followers care more about your meals than most people care about family." "At least somebody appreciates good taste," Vanessa replied. Her words stung more than I expected. When dessert came, I reached into my pocket and placed a small box in front of her. "I know it's simple," I said, "but I wanted it to mean something." Vanessa opened the box slowly. The second she saw the bracelet, she burst into laughter. "Oh my God," she said loudly. "Daniel, this is the anniversary gift?" The nearby tables turned toward us. I felt my face heat up. "I saved for it." Ethan picked up the bracelet and examined it like a joke. "This looks like something from a discount shelf." Vanessa kept laughing. "A sapphire charm? Seriously? I posted one handbag last week that cost more than his monthly salary." A couple at the next table exchanged uncomfortable looks. I swallowed hard. "You don't have to embarrass me." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Then stop giving me embarrassing gifts." Ethan raised his glass. "Come on, Daniel. A woman like Vanessa deserves diamonds." My chest tightened. I bought what I could afford. Vanessa pushed the box back toward me. "You should have bought nothing instead." For a second, nobody spoke. I stared at the bracelet in silence. My hand shook under the table. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't move. Then the waiter approached carefully. "Excuse me, Mr. Hayes?" I looked up. "Yes. You received this envelope a few minutes ago." The sender said it was urgent. He handed me a sealed envelope with the name Levin and More Legal Group printed across the front. Vanessa frowned. "What is that?" "I don't know." Ethan smirked again. "Maybe another bill." I opened the envelope slowly and unfolded the letter inside. The first sentence made my heart stop. "Mr. Daniel Hayes, we are contacting you regarding the finalized sale of your grandfather's property." I blinked several times before continuing. "The land has officially been acquired by Westbridge Technologies for $12.4 million. Vanessa's smile disappeared instantly. Ethan leaned forward. "Wait, how much?" I read the number again because it still didn't feel real. $12.4 million. Nobody at the table spoke. Vanessa grabbed the paper from my hands. "This has to be fake." "It's real," I whispered. The waiter suddenly smiled at me. "Congratulations, sir." Ethan's confident expression cracked. "Your grandfather owned land worth that much?" I nodded slowly. "Apparently." Vanessa stared at me with wide eyes. Just minutes earlier, she looked ashamed to sit beside me. Now she reached for my hand. "Daniel," she said softly, "why didn't you tell me about this?" I pulled my hand away. I didn't know. The bracelet still sat between us on the table. Vanessa looked at it again, but this time she didn't laugh. That was the moment I realized the worst part of the night was not her humiliation. It was finally understanding exactly what my wife truly valued. And for the first time in years, I felt something inside me quietly begin breaking beyond repair. The morning after the anniversary dinner, I woke up to the smell of pancakes. I walked into the kitchen slowly. Vanessa stood near the stove wearing a soft smile I had not seen in months. "Good morning," she said gently. "I made your favorite." I stared at her. "You hate making breakfast." She laughed nervously. "People change." I sat down quietly while she placed a plate in front of me. "Daniel," she said, touching my hand, "about last night?" "I'm sorry." I looked at her. "Sorry for what?" "For embarrassing you." I remembered the laughter at the restaurant, and felt my stomach tighten again. You called my gift embarrassing. Her eyes dropped. I didn't mean it. But you said it. She moved closer. Can we please move on? I nodded slowly, but something inside me no longer trusted her voice. Over the next few days, Vanessa transformed into the perfect wife. She cooked dinner every night, hugged me constantly, and suddenly acted interested in my work stories. One evening she wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "Maybe we should buy a bigger house now." I frowned. A bigger house. We can afford it now. I pulled away slightly. We were barely speaking 2 weeks ago. That's not fair. No, I said quietly. What happened to the restaurant wasn't fair. Her smile weakened for a second before returning again. That fake smile stayed in my head all night. At work, my phone buzzed constantly with calls from unknown numbers. Old classmates, distant relatives, and random business people suddenly wanted to reconnect with me. During lunch break, my best friend Marcus sat across from me in the garage office. He shook his head. Told you this would happen. What? Money changes people around you. I leaned back in my chair. Vanessa's acting different too. Marcus snorted. Different? She used to complain about your car every week. I rubbed my forehead. I kept thinking she would eventually appreciate me. She appreciated stability, Marcus replied. That's not the same thing. His words hit harder than I expected. Marcus had known me since high school. He never cared about money. Even now, covered in grease from repairing engines all day, he looked more honest than anyone I knew. You think she only cares because I'm rich now? I asked. Marcus sighed. I think you already know the answer. Back home that evening, Vanessa sat beside me on the couch scrolling through luxury homes online. This one has an indoor theater, she said excitedly. And look at this kitchen. I barely looked up. Do you even hear yourself? What does that mean? You suddenly care about us now because I have money. Her expression hardened briefly. That's insulting. Is it wrong? She locked her phone immediately. I'm trying to fix our marriage. Or secure your future. Her face turned cold for half a second before softening again. You're being paranoid. Later that night, I walked into the bedroom unexpectedly and noticed Vanessa quickly deleting messages from her phone. Who were you texting? I asked. Nobody. You hid the screen. It was private. I stared at her silently until she sighed dramatically. Ethan texted me. My chest tightened. Why? He feels bad about dinner. He wants to repair the friendship. I almost laughed. Ethan doesn't care about friendships. He was just joking that night. No, I said quietly. He was humiliating me. Vanessa crossed her arms. You're overreacting. That sentence brought back years of memories all at once. Her mocking my old apartment. Her comparing me to richer husbands online. Her laughing when my car broke down last winter. For years, I convinced myself those moments were harmless. Now they felt like warning signs I ignored because I loved her. The next morning at work, Claire from accounting handed me coffee quietly. You look exhausted, she said. I forced a small smile. Long week. She studied my face. Sometimes money creates problems people never expected. I looked at her in surprise. How did you know? You look heartbroken, she answered. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. The inheritance had not changed who Vanessa was. It had only removed her reason to keep pretending. Rain hit my windshield hard enough to blur the road ahead. Vanessa sat beside me earlier that evening pretending everything was normal while putting on makeup in the bedroom mirror. I'm going to Rachel's apartment, she said casually. At 9 at night? She had a bad day. I nodded slowly. You'll be back late? Probably. Then she kissed my cheek and walked out the door. Something about her voice felt rehearsed. An hour later, I stopped at a gas station downtown after leaving Marcus's garage. That was when I saw Ethan's black Mercedes parked outside a luxury hotel across the street. My stomach tightened instantly. No, I whispered to myself. Please don't let this be real. I parked farther down the road and stared through the rain-covered windshield. A few seconds later, Vanessa stepped out of a taxi wearing the same red coat she claimed she wore for Rachel. I froze completely. She walked directly toward the hotel entrance. Toward Ethan. My chest started pounding so hard it hurt. I got out of the car without thinking and followed them inside. The hotel lobby smelled like expensive perfume and polished wood. My shoes left wet footprints across the marble floor while I stayed several steps behind them. Vanessa laughed softly at something Ethan whispered. Then he touched her waist. She didn't pull away. I stopped near the elevators, unable to breathe properly. Ethan leaned closer. You look incredible tonight. Vanessa smiled at him the way she used to smile at me years ago. Then she kissed him. Not quickly, not nervously, completely. My legs nearly gave out beneath me. For a second, I wanted to scream. I wanted to drag Ethan away from her and demand answers. Instead, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and recorded everything silently. Ethan brushed her hair behind her ear. Does Daniel suspect anything? Vanessa laughed quietly. Daniel notices nothing. Those 4 words hurt more than the kiss itself. I stood there watching the woman I loved act like I didn't exist. Eventually, they entered the elevator together without seeing me. The doors closed. And just like that, my marriage stopped feeling real. Back home, I sat alone in darkness for hours with the video replaying again and again on my phone. Every memory suddenly looked different. Every argument, every fake apology, every moment she compared me to richer men. I leaned forward and covered my face with my hands. How stupid was I? I whispered. My phone buzzed around midnight. Vanessa, Rachel's feeling emotional tonight. I might stay longer. I stared at the message for almost a full minute before typing back. Me, no problem. Drive safe. Even sending those words made me hate myself. The next morning, Vanessa walked into the kitchen, smiling like nothing happened. Morning, she said cheerfully. I forced myself to look calm. Morning. She kissed my cheek while pouring coffee. You seem tired. I didn't sleep much. Work stress. Something like that. For one dangerous second, I almost confronted her. But then I stopped myself. Anger would only warn her. I needed truth first. Complete truth. Later that afternoon, I called Rachel during my lunch break. Hey, she answered nervously. Did Vanessa visit you last night? Silence filled the phone immediately. No, Rachel admitted quietly. Why? I closed my eyes. I just wanted to check. Daniel, she whispered. Is something wrong? I stared across the parking lot. I don't know yet, but deep down, I already knew everything. After work, Claire noticed me sitting alone outside the building. You okay? She asked gently. I forced a smile. Rough day. She sat beside me without pushing for details. Most people filled silence because they felt uncomfortable. Claire didn't. After a minute, she finally spoke. Sometimes people hide pain because they're afraid saying it out loud will make it real. I looked at her carefully. How do you know that? Because I've done it too. Her honesty felt strangely comforting. I nodded slowly. What if somebody you trusted completely turned out to be different than you believed? Claire thought for a moment. Then the truth hurts, she said softly. But lies hurt longer. I looked down at my hands. For years, I saw myself as a man desperately trying to save his marriage. That night changed everything. Now I wanted answers more than love. And for the first time in years, I started thinking clearly instead of emotionally. I met Samuel Brooks in a quiet coffee shop 2 blocks from my office. He arrived exactly on time, wearing a gray coat and carrying a thin leather folder. You're Daniel Hayes? He asked calmly. I nodded. You're the investigator Marcus recommended? Samuel sat across from me. Depends. Are you looking for the truth or validation? I stared at him for a second. What's the difference? Truth hurts worse. His honesty immediately made me trust him more. I slid my phone across the table and played the hotel video of Vanessa kissing Ethan. Samuel watched silently until the video ended. How long do you think it's been happening? I asked quietly. I'll know soon enough. I leaned back heavily. I want everything. Financial records, meetings, hidden accounts. All of it. Samuel closed the folder. Then prepare yourself. Affairs are usually symptoms of larger problems. 3 days later, he called me after midnight. You need to see this, he said. I drove straight to his office downtown. Samuel spread several documents across the desk. Your wife took loans under your name 6 months ago. I stared at him. What? She forged part of your financial authorization. My chest tightened. How much? Almost $200,000. I felt physically sick. Samuel handed me another file. Most of the money went into Ethan Cole's company. That company is failing badly, he replied. Ethan made reckless investments last year. He's drowning in debt. I sat there silently while everything connected inside my head. Vanessa did not just betray me emotionally. She turned my marriage into a financial plan. Samuel studied me carefully. There's more. I laughed bitterly. Of course there is. They've discussed convincing you to invest several $1,000,000 after the inheritance transfer finishes. I rubbed my face slowly. So I'm basically an emergency rescue fund. That appears to be the plan. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Every fake smile from Vanessa suddenly made perfect sense. Every apology, every hug, every soft word, none of it was about love. The next evening, Vanessa walked into my office at home, carrying wine glasses. "You work too much lately," she said sweetly. I closed my laptop, just organizing finances. Her eyes brightened immediately. "Actually, Ethan mentioned a business opportunity yesterday." There it was. I forced myself to stay calm. "What kind of opportunity?" "He's expanding his company." I almost laughed hearing the lie so confidently. Vanessa sat beside me. "If we invest now, we could double our money. We already have enough money. But this could secure our future." I looked directly into her eyes. "Our future?" She nodded quickly. "Of course." I smiled faintly. "Tell Ethan I'm interested." The excitement on her face appeared instantly. "Really? I'll hear his proposal." The second she hugged me, anger burned through my chest like fire. Later that night, I met Marcus at his garage. He wiped grease from his hands and frowned. "You look terrible." I found out Vanessa borrowed money using my name. Marcus cursed under his breath. "You serious?" "She helped Ethan survive financially." Marcus shook his head slowly. "That's not betrayal anymore. That's calculation." "I know." He opened a toolbox and pulled out a cold beer. "So what now?" "I protect my money first." Marcus nodded immediately. "Smart." Over the next week, Marcus helped me quietly move large portions of my inheritance into protected accounts Vanessa could not access. Meanwhile, Claire noticed the exhaustion on my face during lunch break. "You're carrying something heavy," she said gently. I stared down at my coffee. What if anger starts feeling better than sadness? Claire remained quiet for a moment. "Then you risk becoming someone you won't recognize later." I sighed. "They used me." "I know," she said softly. "But don't let their cruelty decide who you become." Her words stayed with me all night. Unfortunately, Vanessa's fake affection kept feeding my rage. Every smile looked rehearsed. Every touch felt dishonest. One evening she wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "I'm so lucky to have you." I nearly lost control hearing those words. But instead of exploding, I smiled back calmly. Because by then, I already had a plan. And just like Vanessa humiliated me publicly at our anniversary dinner, I intended to return the favor in front of everyone she cared about most. Ethan's office sat on the top floor of a glass building downtown. The lobby alone probably cost more than my first apartment. When his assistant opened the office doors, Ethan stood near the window, smiling confidently. "Daniel," he said warmly, shaking my hand. "Glad you came." I forced a polite smile. "You said you had an opportunity for me." "I do." He motioned toward a leather chair. "Sit down." The office walls displayed framed magazine covers and fake success stories. A month ago, I might have felt intimidated walking into that room. Now all I saw was desperation hidden behind expensive furniture. Ethan poured whiskey into 2 glasses. "To new beginnings." I accepted the drink, but barely touched it. "So," I said calmly, "tell me about the investment." Ethan leaned forward confidently. "My company is expanding into international tech markets. We're expecting huge returns within a year." I nodded slowly. "And how much do you need?" "5 million." He said the number 2 casually. I almost laughed hearing it. Ethan opened a folder filled with charts and projections. "You don't strike me as a finance guy, Daniel." So I simplified everything. The insult slipped into his voice naturally, like he still saw me as weak, like he still believed I would sit quietly while smarter people control my life. "I appreciate that," I replied. He smirked slightly. "Vanessa says you trust her judgment." My chest tightened hearing her name. "She believes in the company?" "Completely," Ethan answered quickly. "Honestly, she's been one of my biggest supporters." I stared at him silently for a second too long. Then I smiled again. That's good to hear. Ethan relaxed immediately. This investment could secure your future for generations. Funny. Vanessa used those exact same words 2 nights earlier. When I got home, she met me at the door almost immediately. Well, she asked excitedly. How did it go? I loosened my tie slowly. Interesting. She followed me into the kitchen. Ethan's company has incredible potential. That's what he said. Vanessa wrapped her arms around me from behind. Daniel, this could change our lives forever. I nearly laughed hearing those words from someone already planning my downfall. Our lives, I repeated quietly. She kissed my shoulder. Why are you acting distant lately? Maybe I'm thinking more carefully. That's smart, she said quickly. But you should trust the people who love you. The word love almost made me sick. That night, Samuel called me again. I finished digging through Ethan's records, he said, and you were right not to trust him. I drove to Samuel's office immediately. He handed me several documents. His company is close to bankruptcy. I flipped through the papers silently. Jesus. Samuel nodded. There's more. Ethan manipulated financial reports to hide losses from investors. Illegal. Very. I stared down at the evidence while anger slowly turned cold inside me. If I invest, I said quietly, that money disappears. Within months. I leaned back heavily. They planned this together. Samuel crossed his arms. Looks that way. For the first time, I truly understood the entire plan. Vanessa and Ethan never intended to build a future with me. They planned to drain my inheritance until nothing remained, then eventually leave me behind. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt strangely calm, because clarity is powerful. The next day, Claire found me sitting alone outside work during lunch break. You look exhausted again, she said softly. Long week. She handed me coffee and sat beside me quietly. After a minute, she asked, do you ever feel lonely even when someone's beside you? I looked at her carefully. Every day lately. Claire nodded slowly. That feeling usually means something important is broken. I laughed bitterly. What if everything is broken? Then you rebuild honestly. Her words hit me harder than expected. Most people gave advice because they wanted to sound wise. Claire spoke like someone who understood pain personally. For the first time in years, I felt heard instead of judged. And honestly, that terrified me. Because emotional betrayal hurts differently when someone else finally shows you genuine kindness. That evening, Vanessa sat beside me on the couch. So, she asked carefully, have you decided about the investment? I looked directly into her eyes. Then I smiled calmly. I'm in. The excitement on her face appeared instantly. She kissed me hard without hesitation. But while she celebrated beside me, I quietly prepared to destroy the entire illusion around her life forever. I spent Saturday afternoon inside my grandfather's old house alone. Dust covered the furniture, and the air smelled like old books and cedarwood. Most people would have sold the place immediately after receiving millions from the land deal. But I couldn't do that yet. This house still felt honest. Unlike my marriage, I opened another storage box and found stacks of old photographs, fishing gear, and handwritten receipts from 30 years ago. Then I noticed a small envelope hidden beneath a wooden toolbox. My name was written across the front in my grandfather's uneven handwriting. I froze. Slowly, I opened it. Daniel, the letter began, if you are reading this, then life has probably disappointed you already. I sat down immediately. You will learn something important about money, the letter continued. Poverty hides bad people. Wealth reveals them. My chest tightened. I kept the land secret because I wanted you to become a decent man before becoming a rich one. Character matters more than comfort. I swallowed hard and kept reading. People will eventually show you who they truly are. When that happens, do not hate yourself for loving them honestly. My vision blurred slightly. For years, I blamed myself every time Vanessa insulted me. Every comparison, every cruel joke, every moment she treated kindness like weakness. I always thought if I worked harder, earned more, or became better somehow, she would finally love me properly. But sitting there inside my grandfather's quiet house, I finally understood something painful. I had spent years begging for love from people who only respected status. I lowered the letter slowly and whispered, "You were right." For the first time since discovering the affair, revenge stopped feeling like the most important thing. What I really wanted was freedom. Freedom from constantly apologizing for myself. Freedom from needing approval from people who never valued me honestly. My phone buzzed suddenly. Rachel. I stared at her name for a moment before answering. "Hello. Daniel," she said nervously. "Can we meet somewhere private?" An hour later, I sat across from her inside a quiet diner near the highway. Rachel looked exhausted. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup before speaking. "I know about Vanessa and Ethan." Hearing someone finally say it aloud felt strangely relieving. "How long?" I asked quietly. Rachel lowered her eyes. "Months." Pain hit my chest immediately. "You knew." "She made me promise not to tell you." I laughed bitterly. "Of course she did." Rachel looked close to tears. "I'm sorry. I should have told you earlier." "Why didn't you?" "She's my sister," Rachel whispered. I kept hoping she would stop. I leaned back silently. Rachel wiped her eyes quickly. "Daniel, you didn't deserve any of this." "Did Vanessa ever feel guilty?" Rachel hesitated too long before answering. "That's all I needed to know." She looked down again. "There's something else." My stomach tightened immediately. "What now?" Rachel took a slow breath. "Vanessa plans to convince you to combine your inheritance into shared investment accounts." I stared at her. She said once everything becomes legally connected, leaving the marriage would be impossible without losing huge amounts of money. For a second, I genuinely couldn't speak. Even after everything I learned already, the cruelty still shocked me. Rachel looked horrified by her own sister. "I swear I never supported this." "I know. She wasn't always like this." I shook my head slowly. "Maybe she was. Maybe I just refused to see it." Rachel reached across the table carefully. "What are you going to do?" I thought about my grandfather's letter sitting inside my coat pocket. Then I thought about Vanessa kissing Ethan while laughing behind my back. Finally, I answered honestly. "I'm done protecting people who destroy me." Rachel nodded sadly. "Then whatever happens next, she earned it." As I drove home later that night, I realized something important. My marriage was already dead. I had simply been the last person willing to admit it. The ballroom glittered with gold lights and expensive champagne. Every guest wore designer suits, polished smiles, and fake confidence. Soft music played, while waiters moved between tables carrying trays of wine. Vanessa stood near the stage in a tight, gold dress, smiling proudly beside Ethan. A month ago, I would have felt intimidated in that room. Tonight, I felt calm, because for once, I knew exactly who everyone truly was. Vanessa walked toward me holding 2 champagne glasses. "You look handsome tonight," she said softly. I accepted the glass. "You seem nervous." She laughed lightly. "This investment means everything to Ethan." I looked at her carefully. "And to you." Her smile flickered slightly. "To us." That word no longer meant anything. Across the room, Ethan climbed onto the small stage and tapped his microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced confidently, "thank you all for coming tonight." Guests applauded politely. Ethan raised his glass toward me. "I'm especially excited to welcome my future business partner, Daniel Hayes." More applause filled the ballroom. I slowly walked closer while dozens of investors smiled at me greedily. Ethan grinned. "Daniel's investment will help launch the company into a powerful new era." I stared at him silently. He really believed he had already won. Vanessa squeezed my arm proudly. "I'm so happy for us." Her touch almost disgusted me now. Ethan continued speaking. "Trust is everything in business. Without trust, partnerships collapse." The irony nearly made me laugh. I reached into my pocket and wrapped my fingers around my phone. Years of humiliation flashed through my mind all at once. Vanessa mocking my cheap anniversary gift. Ethan insulting me constantly. The hotel elevator doors closing while they kissed behind my back. For years, I stayed quiet because I feared losing people who never respected me. Not anymore. Ethan lifted his glass higher. "Daniel, would you like to say a few words before we celebrate?" I smiled calmly. "Actually, yes." Vanessa looked relieved. She had no idea what was coming. I walked toward the projector controls beside the stage. Ethan frowned slightly. "Need help?" No, I said quietly. I've got it. Then I connected my phone to the ballroom projector. The screen behind Ethan flickered once, and suddenly the hotel footage appeared. Vanessa kissing Ethan. The ballroom fell completely silent. Gasps spread across the room instantly. Someone dropped a champagne glass nearby. Vanessa's face turned white. Daniel. Ethan spun around in horror. Turn that off. But the video kept playing. Every secret touch. Every kiss. Every betrayal. The investors stared at Ethan like they had never seen him before. Vanessa rushed toward me desperately. Please stop this. I stepped away from her. Why? Embarrassment suddenly bothers you now. Her eyes filled with panic. Daniel, listen to me. No, I interrupted coldly. You should listen for once. Ethan grabbed the microphone angrily. This is personal nonsense meant to destroy my reputation. Right on cue, Samuel walked into the ballroom carrying several folders. Your reputation destroyed itself, he said calmly. The room turned toward him immediately. Samuel handed copies of financial documents to several investors. These records show Mr. Cole hid millions in debt while manipulating investment reports. One investor flipped through the papers with growing shock. What the hell is this? Another man looked furious. These numbers are fraudulent. Ethan's confidence collapsed instantly. You don't understand, he snapped. This is being taken out of context. Samuel remained calm. Federal investigators may disagree. Panic spread through the room rapidly. Guests whispered everywhere. Several investors stormed toward the exits, while others demanded answers from Ethan. Vanessa grabbed my arm again, crying openly now. Please, she whispered desperately. Don't do this. I looked directly into her eyes. The same eyes that once laughed at me across a dinner table. You already did this, I replied quietly. Tears streamed down her face. I made mistakes. You made choices. Her voice cracked completely. I love you. That line no longer had power over me. I gently pulled my arm away. Tomorrow morning, I said calmly, my lawyer will send divorce papers. Vanessa looked like she couldn't breathe. Meanwhile, Ethan argued desperately with furious investors near the stage while security guards moved closer. The entire empire they built through lies was collapsing publicly. Exactly like my marriage already had. I adjusted my jacket and walked toward the ballroom doors. Nobody stopped me, and for the first time in years, breathing finally felt easy again. 3 days after the party, Ethan's face appeared across every business news website in the city. Fraud investigations, investor lawsuits, financial collapse. The empire he spent years building was burning publicly. Marcus tossed a newspaper onto my kitchen counter and whistled. Damn, you really destroyed that man. I stared at Ethan's photo silently. I didn't destroy him, I said quietly. The truth did. Marcus opened my fridge. Still feels satisfying, though. Part of me wanted to agree. Another part just felt tired. My phone buzzed again across the counter. Vanessa. 12th call that morning alone. Marcus glanced at the screen. You gonna answer? No. You sure? I nodded slowly. There's nothing left to say. But even after exposing them publicly, sleep still refused to come easily. At night, I kept replaying old memories in my head. The first apartment Vanessa and I shared. The road trips. The promises. Sometimes betrayal hurts worse because the happy memories were real too. A week later, Claire found me sitting alone outside work again. You look exhausted, she said gently. I thought revenge would feel better. She sat beside me quietly. And it doesn't erase anything. Claire nodded softly. Justice and healing aren't the same thing. I stared down at my coffee. Then what heals people? Time, she answered. Honesty. Distance from the people who hurt you. I laughed bitterly. That sounds slow. It is. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then Claire finally asked, do you miss her? The question caught me off guard. After several seconds, I answered honestly. I miss who I thought she was. Claire looked at me carefully. That's different. And she was right. The woman I loved probably never existed outside my imagination. Meanwhile, Vanessa's social life collapsed almost as quickly as Ethan's business. Friends who once worshipped her online suddenly disappeared. People who attended her parties stopped answering calls. One evening, Rachel invited me to meet her for coffee again. The second she sat down, she sighed heavily. She's falling apart. I stayed silent. Rachel rubbed her forehead. Yesterday, she screamed at me for an hour. About what? She blamed everyone except herself. That sounded painfully familiar. Rachel shook her head sadly. I finally told her the truth. What truth? That she destroyed her own life. I looked up slowly. Rachel crossed her arms. I told her greed ruined everything. And how did she react? She cried. Rachel admitted quietly. But honestly, I think reality finally hit her. For the first time in years, I actually felt sorry for Vanessa. Not enough to forgive her, but enough to stop enjoying her suffering. 2 nights later, someone knocked on my front door unexpectedly. When I opened it, Vanessa stood there alone in the rain. She looked exhausted. No designer dress. No perfect makeup. Just regret. Can I come in? She asked softly. I hesitated before stepping aside silently. Vanessa walked inside slowly and looked around the quiet house. It feels different here now, she whispered. So do I. She lowered her eyes immediately. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, she whispered, I lost everything. I leaned against the kitchen counter. You had everything already. Tears filled her eyes instantly. I know that now. I studied her carefully. For once, she looked honest. Unfortunately, honesty arrived too late. Vanessa wiped her face shakily. I really did love you, Daniel. I looked at her calmly. Not enough. She broke down, crying completely. I was selfish, she admitted. I cared too much about status and money and appearances. I stayed silent. I thought if I had enough luxury, she whispered, I'd finally feel important. And did it work? She shook her head slowly. Then she stepped closer. Please tell me there's still a chance for us. That question should have hurt me. Instead, I felt strangely empty. Because trust dies quietly long before relationships officially end. I looked directly into her tear-filled eyes. I hope you become a better person someday, I said softly. Her expression collapsed immediately. But I can't love someone I no longer trust. Vanessa covered her mouth while crying harder. A few minutes later, she walked toward the door slowly. Before leaving, she turned back one final time. I really am sorry. This time, I believed her. Unfortunately, some apologies arrive after the damage becomes permanent forever.